You're tuning into the Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal podcast. If you have a story or a guest recommendation that you think others need to hear, email me at wildweirdandsometimesnormal@gmail.com. Let's get this started. Alex and Brett, kick it!
Wild. Wild. Weird. And sometimes wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. And sometimes normal.
On this episode, I'm joined by Ledger and Owen from the FlipCast Podcast. They're a couple of college students early in the podcast game, but have already developed a loyal following. We had a great time as I picked their brains about their podcast, artificial intelligence, college career choices in an always evolving technological world, COVID stealing their high school experiences, politics on a college campus, do they think humanity will live on Mars in their lifetime, and then I pepper them with some fun and crazy questions. An all-around great conversation. Follow them on IG, TikTok, and beyond, and let the fellas know you heard them on Wild and Weird. Enjoy the show. Are you looking for CBD for your pet? My friends at Pure Pet Wellness have what you need. They use the highest quality ingredients. While other companies may use synthetic oils in their CBD, Pure Pet Wellness uses organic ingredients. Organically grown hemp, organic coconut oil, organic shea butter, organic beeswax, and that's just to name a few. A family-owned and operated company that also offers fast shipping. Go to purepetwellness.com for all your pet's CBD needs and use the discount code WILD and WEIRD at checkout. That's WILD, A-N-D, WEIRD. Treat your animal right. Go to purepetwellness.com. Are you looking to buy a home in New Jersey? Escape the city and move to the suburbs? Finally purchase a vacation home on the lake or down the shore? Maybe you're one of the lucky ones who are retiring and moving out of state. If so, let me help you. Keller Williams and the Real Estate Professional Group have what you need to make your goals come true. Reach out and have a conversation with someone who will put you first. Contact Brian McCoach at 856-321-1212 or email brianmccoach@kw.com. Welcome to another episode of Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal. I'm your host, Brian. And tonight I'm joined by Owen and Ledger from the FlipCast Podcast. Welcome, fellas.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, man, I really appreciate it. So I was, in the depths of Instagram one day, then just New England Podcast Network kind of reaches out and, they're going to do some marketing for podcasts. I'm like, let's see what's happening here. And I checked some other stuff out. And Ledger, are you the one that handles that stuff?
Yeah, so I started the New England Podcast a few months ago, actually. And I've been reaching out to podcasts left and right. And you were actually one of them that had popped up on the list of podcasts out there. So yeah, it's why I reached out.
I'm sorry that popped up for you. You're probably regretting that decision every day now.
This is awesome. This is one of the better things that's happened to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your site, you're just out there promoting podcasts. I've had some people reach out to me through, I have like a Facebook page or whatever for the show. And this one guy, I don't know if he's from India or somewhere, but he was like, just give me $500 and I'll market for you. Just like, let me just prove myself to you. I'm like, okay,
like that too.
Did you pay him?
No, he wanted $1,000.
Yeah, so my guy was offering a deal. I'll hook you up. I'll send you my guy.
Yeah.
Please do. We need him.
We were getting robbed with this guy trying to make clips for us. We weren't going to do it.
Yeah, and hey, maybe the guy's legit or not, but he's like, let me prove myself to you. I'm like, okay, I'm somewhat interested in that. And he's like, but then also pay me. And I'm like, well, you need to kind of show me what you can do first before you give, the $500. But anyway, so your thing was just amazing though. You put together this great summary of what my show is. Like, I can't even summarize my show that well. And, just tagged it and all these hashtags, all this great stuff. Like, I think you're really good at marketing, man. And so, your podcast, yeah. Oh, good.
No. So the kind of the New England page theme is it's a free promotion, right? That's like as we started in podcasting, the problem we found was that there is no free promoters out there at all. And with my work with my band, I there's a lot of free promotion stuff that the bands do for each other, but something like podcasting, it's so independent where it's either you're paying for promotion or you're not. So I wanted to kind of make almost like a community, like I've said before, a community bulletin where any podcast who's interested can kind of reach out to this page and be promoted to be seen by other podcasters or, by other people following the page. So that's kind of the whole deal. And I'm hoping, the more it continues, the bigger it will get. I mean, we're starting to get more followers. We're starting to get people asking on their own to be on the page. So it's slowly turning into kind of the idea of a beautiful, just free place where people can just come and have their stuff uploaded and let it be seen.
I really think that's awesome. It is difficult if you don't have a team or if you don't want to, dump a ton of money in to, or even, I'm not too familiar how bots work though, but at one point, a few hundred of my downloads were removed from my tracking analytics. And then I reached out to, to the person hosting my stuff, like, hey, like, where these things go? And they're like, oh no, we removed the bots. I was like, well, like, can you put those back? Like, I didn't create them. Like, I kind of like those numbers. They made me feel good.
Right.
So it's hard. You're connecting, or it's always like one-on-one, you're just reaching out to people independently. And if you just grow that community, I think it's like really good to, I buy a ton of crap. Like, I don't know. Like, I have a Nike t-shirt. I never met anybody who worked for Nike or, a basketball player or anything like that. Like, why wouldn't I go spend that same $20 and buy a FlipCast t-shirt? Why wouldn't I? Like, I'm talking to you guys, like people supporting people who are actually helping you.
Yeah, that's what I've said to Owen. We've talked about it before. It's like the only way we're going to grow with this is through locally and word of mouth. It's the only way you can really start from the bottom is doing that.
It's totally true.
Yeah. So we were talking about your band before we started recording. And what's the name of your band?
So band spelled JAWNS.
So the Johns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you described it as kind of like the, hippie yacht rock like type of thing you guys are doing. And now I find myself close to being, hey, everyone's nice in this world. I like everybody. I find myself being almost as insufferable as some hipsters, that now I only listen to music. And some of my favorite music are the people that I interviewed. I'm like, oh, no. Oh, you guys don't know these people? Like, oh, come on. Like, you got to listen to these guys.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So now the Johns I'm going to have on a rotation of playing. And people are like, what do you listen to? Like, you guys don't know the Johns? Like, what are you talking about? With my John t-shirt off on. Yeah. Gosh, you're not deep in the yacht rock scene up in Northeast? Jesus.
It's weird, I couldn't even have ever imagined you're gonna have this kind of weird following, but a lot of people up here are into that.
It is true.
That's awesome, man. What kind of scenes are you playing? You guys going to like, open mic or like VFWs you're renting out? So
we do college gigs. What we really got into for a bit of time here is we got down to some of the city gigs. So we were down in New Haven, Connecticut. We did some shows down there. It's really like hole-in-the-wall places like cafes, and we did one in a bookstore. So it's really local stuff, but we meet a lot of cool new people. So we honestly have taken any gig opportunities. We have kind of like a band manager, and she gets a lot of the gigs, but we've been to a lot of really great places and met a lot of really great new people from these little local scenes.
That's so cool, man. And so you guys are in college. I'm a lot older than you here, and I've been going to shows forever. And it used to be the smaller bands or the up and coming, they'd have shitty equipment. They would have shitty sound. They would have a shitty team behind them because they just don't know. Like, what you know. And now with, the technology being where it is, with your iPhone being, each year the iPhone comes out. Like, does the iPhone change so much? Well, no, not so much, but the technology is like incredible inside of there. And you have 4K pictures, you have high streaming definition video that you can record and upload your stuff and sound so much more professional than where 15, 20, 25 years ago, you would just sound like shit and people wouldn't be able to listen to you online.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. This opportunity, especially for you guys. So you're both in college now. We'll get to the FlipCast in a minute. What are your majors? What do you guys want to do?
I'm marketing with communications minor. when I was picking majors, I knew I wanted to do business because I knew there's a lot of opportunity, but it was one of those things where I'm not a big math guy, and marketing is kind of like, the color of a presentation rather than, balancing a balance sheet. So I enjoy that side of it a lot more. I don't know exactly what I want to do, but it's a direction. We'll call it a direction.
And usually where you start, you don't always end up where you're finishing. So
that's very true.
Direction. You're pointing in the right way.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about you, Ledger? What are you studying in school?
So right now, I'm in community college. I'm getting my business administration and marketing certificate, and then I'm really hoping to move on and get an urban planning degree from a state university. I'm not sure which one yet. I had to take a little year off of college because I used to be a McDonald's general manager, so it kind of slowed me down. But I'm back in school now, and I'm 19, and I'm doing great.
Let's go.
It took me 5 years to graduate community college. It was the worst thing in the whole world, but it was also as each semester I would start with like 5 classes and then be like, oh, like I don't have to really go to these and kind of show up for tests. But then you don't really learn if you're not going. So like as you take the test, it's just like, this like insanity of like, I'll keep doing the same thing until, it finally clicked of like, wow, this like really sucks. And I need to like get motivated and figure out what I'm doing. So community college, great way to go and all. But my point was, so I was interested in what you're doing, not so much to tell you like, hey, you should go do this, but more of, sounds like with the marketing, urban planning, I'm not familiar with. But again, where we are with computers and everything, that I would say for my kids, I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. I almost forgot her age there. I've definitely had that part out. My kid, I have a 10-year-old and I have a 7-year-old. And whenever I'm talking to, the parents of their friends and everything, like my friends and their parents, it's like, hey, if these kids are not millionaires by the way that the internet's there for them, you can have your own business by the time, a successful business by the time you're 15, 20, 22. You don't need all this startup money to get started. You can do Kickstarters. You can do these fundraisers. You can do a million different things to get your idea up and running. And YouTube, like whatever my monthly fees for this aren't astronomical. Like I can run a podcast and see if it's successful, run it for a year, run it for 2 years, and not put my savings, my whatever it might be, into complete waste. You're not shelling out thousands of dollars every month. You're like, oh, I really hope this makes it. You're like, okay, well, this is like $50 a month to have, a pretty good hosting system and, to pay for the upgraded Zoom or whatever it might be. And, it's a one-time cost for the mics or whatever it might be. But, prior to the internet, especially now, there's just like Patreon. There's so many different things you can go use and get in that direction. So I just think it's cool. You guys have the whole world there for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really crazy how much you can get. And, I like what you're saying that with having a business and using the internet to your advantage, because my brother, he's a little bit younger than me. He's 16 right now, and he makes games on Roblox. And kid you not, he's made thousands of dollars, over $50,000 with Roblox, making games for kids. So it's really insane. Anybody in any age at this point can do anything.
Walking to my son today, he's like, Dad, can you install Roblox onto my iPad so I can play with my friends? I was like, dude, like, I don't know about Roblox. I was like, I know you have to like pay money for all this stuff. Like, I'm not buying any of these upgrades. Like, you put the free game in. He's like, no, I was use the free. But now I know if he can make 50 grand, like, I might invest some money into this.
Yeah, it's more so of you learn the code. It's actually, if they have anybody can get into it. It's completely free. It's coding. So it kind of gives you like a base thing. You can get into coding and scripting. And my brother's like a genius with it. That's all he does is code. He doesn't really do anything other than bodybuild and code. But
I think that's awesome. I mean, coding. So are you guys concerned with how fast technology is progressing? I listened to your one podcast and you were talking about fast food, comparing the marketing of fast food, and McDonald's is a giant window of a hamburger to entice people to come in, and the hamburger is like 100 times the size it really is. And there are these online, they have these apps or whatever you can sign on to, and you can order your Wendy's ahead. But the McDonald's one will start tracking you, and they'll have your food ready, knowing when you're showing up. Like that's kind of crazy to me. Like I'm not ready to hand that control over yet. As big tech already has all my information. I'm not ready to click on that yes button for them to track me. This has sped up so fast over the last few years. Do you guys embrace that it's going this fast, or do you want to hit a pause button on it?
I mean, it's one of those things where if you can benefit from it, I view it as a positive. I mean, obviously all great things are good in moderation. So big companies and big organizations having a ton of this information of people that may only want a cheeseburger and not understand the implications kind of deal. It's concerning. It's definitely concerning. But I think with good regulation and, growth being monitored, obviously, and scaled, it's definitely a good thing to kind of stray away from the idea of, the apps and these things collecting your data. It's great for people like us, for example, and like you, just starting anything for low cost because of how crazy technology is now. Kind of going off of your point earlier. So I guess in the right hands, it's a great thing. So it kind of turns into like super villain movie or whatever you want to call it. Just gotta not be Doctor Doom.
That's what you have to hope for. I think I have the maybe more pessimistic that, if you ever want to wait for regulation, the cat's out of the bag by then. Pandora's box is open, and they're like, I went on several rants that in front of Congress, they've had Mark Zuckerberg up there to talk about privacy and everything they're doing. And then the congressmen are like, my password's locked out. Can you help me reset my password? And it's like, what the fuck, man? Like, you had one shot to talk to the guy to answer all these important things. And you just want to talk about your own little personal thing. Like, I can't get into my Gmail. He's like, I don't do Gmail, man. Like, what are you talking about? I do Facebook. He doesn't even talk that way. He just stares at you like a robot anyway, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy how far it's expanded. We actually, Owen and I did a couple episodes recently about AI, and we were talking a lot about the implications of that and how it was rising, and especially with like targeted advertising. Like I had talked about before with the McDonald's targeted advertising, it's absolutely wild. I was working there as a GM, and I kid you not, we'd have people come through every day and they'd order a Big Mac meal with an apple pie. And basically the McDonald's app had learned that they were ordering apple pie every day. So it was giving a discount code off the apple pie for them to get it. So it's almost as if it's preying on you constantly. It's learning you to make you want to buy things more. Suggestive selling is huge. It's a money pool at that point. Through my thought process to it.
There was an article a few years ago. It was talking about Amazon Prime that it could predict. It was a high 90%. It could predict before you even started typing what you were going to buy as you logged in to go do it. It just knew from everything that it collected from you and what you bought previously. So your impulse buys that you have, it already knew you were impulse buying before you even searched for it.
Crazy.
It's insane.
Crazy.
Yeah, I guess as long you can work for the internet or the internet can work for you, and I guess you can take that for the same thing for tech. Like, am I just going to sit on Twitter all day and doom scroll the whole time, or am I going to try to sit here and use that for marketing purposes? Am I going to try to use that to connect? Am I going to try to use that for whatever it might be? And there's people in both camps, and there's people who don't use any of it.
Right. Agreed.
Yep.
So FlipCast, how'd you guys get started? What made you want to get into podcasting?
So here's the story. I'm going to give you the story.
We should go full story.
We're here.
Original story. So Owen and I have been friends for quite a few years now, and we've always wanted to start our little personal business, and we could never nail what we wanted to do. And one of the first things we were thinking about doing a Shopify store and maybe doing that, but then we get to doing it and like, man, I don't want to put all this money into it. So one day we were in Newport, Rhode Island, and we're walking down the street with all of our. And I said, man, what if we started a podcast? And then it kind of took off from there.
Yeah. One Italian espresso bar kind of uplifted this whole thing. Got the espresso high to get moving.
Hey, you get too much of that stuff. You think you could fly. You think you can lift up cars. Like, why not start a podcast? I'm ready to run a marathon.
Exactly. So we kind of got together and where are we going to film at? And I was like, oh, my great grandmother's house. Here we go. So, we had a little set. And originally, these are new mics we have now, but we have these really tough mics that we work with. Over the recent, 9 episodes we've grown and made our purchases, new mics and some cost-effective stuff to get better, our quality better, and that kind of thing. So very slowly we're growing, but we're growing and learning every single day and making it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. When I started my first episode, and it was a woman that I grew up next door to for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years or something. So, I know her, stay connected through Facebook and, like her post or whatever it might be. And when I had her on before I hit record, I was talking to her fine, like, hey, we're going to cover this, this, and this. This is okay. She was diagnosed with cancer at, I think she was like 38 years old, stage 4 lung cancer.
Wow.
So terrible stuff for her. And I was like, is this okay? Like, you want to talk about this? And she's fully on board. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hit the record button. And then I hit the record button. I was like, fuck, man, like, what do you say? Like, how do you start off a podcast? Like, maybe it's better the two of you guys and you can just like riff off each other and like, we both have to say one word. But I was like, man, I have to the football game doesn't start till the guy till kickoff. Like, but the guy has to kick it. And I'm just staring and for a minute there was nothing. And I could just feel her eyes just like staring at me. But like finally just, you let it off and I think I definitely sound better now. And going back to that, I don't think you can clearly hear how nervous I was or how lost I was, but I think I've definitely found a lane now.
Yeah, we definitely at the beginning were a little nervous. Like on our very first episode, we just did an introductory episode and we were like, I didn't know what to do, but our more recent stuff, we've gotten so good about just keeping conversation going and what we're talking about. We've always bounced off each other very, very well, even without a podcast. So it's really to the point now we got to do stop filming. We've recorded for an hour and a half. Owen's pulling me out of here.
Yeah.
Let's go home. It's 10 o'clock. There we go.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Even if you're on a good roll. So I go through and, I'll do some light editing. So, it's not like a caveman when I'm talking or these long pauses. I'm trying to gather an idea. And the audience, they're listening. This is so great. His words just flow so smoothly. And hey, there's some light editing here, people. But it can be, painful sometimes of just doing it or figuring out what you're going to say or how to say it the right way. And, you get better at it, I guess.
Right. So how did you get into podcasting? We're kind of curious.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to podcasts, 13 years or so, through my commutes. Started with Bill Simmons up in your area. He's a big sports guy. He's from Boston. He lives out in LA now. But I listen to him and Joe Rogan, and so that's kind of my two worlds. A little bit of, I guess a third world. A little bit of bro science, a lot of sports, and then aliens and weird stuff. And I was always interested in that.
That's great.
That's a completely rounded person, right? I'm a completely rounded person here. I check off all the food groups. Yeah, that's it. A completely rounded person in a triangle. Yeah, that's it. So I would, go off these topics, wherever it might be. And, I have different groups of friends that I talk to about different things. And my brother, he listens to all this stuff too, for the most part. So, we shoot over memes or funny stories or weird stuff. Right, dude, we should do a podcast. And for years we talked about since 2016 and never did anything. So then finally I was on a health kick for a while. I was lifting and working out every day. I was I stopped drinking for dry January and kept that going I went through July, but there was the third month, I found all this energy kick in. I was like, you know what? I got to do it. It's not that hard. Just get on here, get it. Let's go do it. I went to Barnes and Noble. I'm taking pictures of people's books of topics that I find interesting. And then I just scrolled through my Facebook feed of friends or whatever. I'm like, who do I know? Who owns a business? Who has a story? Who do I know anything on here? So I saw my friend Angela and her cancer story. I was like, all right, I'll see if she wants to come on and do it. My friend I used to work with in a casino in Pittsburgh, Dave, he lived 3 blocks from that train crash that happened in February where all the toxic chemicals in Palestine, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, do you want to come on here and do this? And then there was a guy on Twitter that somehow I started following, and he can predict earthquakes through studying the tectonic plates. I don't know exactly how he does it. He tried to explain it to me, but he's right all the time. And so I just reached out to him, and I had 3 people. And one podcast I was listening to was like, hey, you can't just put out one episode. Your first episode, you can't just put out, because if people want more, you don't have more. So I was like, all right, I'm going to release 3 on the same day, and then I'll do every Friday. I'll go ahead and do it. And I've just been fortunate enough that either making connections through, social media, reaching out to people, and just putting things together, or, meeting different people. And then they come back to me and they're like, hey, do you want to talk to a guy about, he wrote a book on Bigfoot? Like, yep, of course I do want to talk to a guy who wrote a book about Bigfoot. And now just, go at it. And the parts. So this is all interview based. And that's hence why you guys are here. Nobody wants to hear me ramble on. I do a short 1-2 intro. I find that hard sometimes to do. You change the inflection and get excitement in there and things like that. It's much easier to do when you're talking to people. But I like the thrill now of oh shit, I have a podcast coming out next Friday. I have 0 guests lined up. Where am I getting this? I can't skip a week. That's definitely not happening. And you miss one. This is just working out, man. I tweaked something in April. I was like, let me just take a couple of days off, and a couple of days turns into a week. And now every day I wake up, I'm like, all right, just knock out 10 push-ups in the morning, do 10 at night, and then tomorrow add a little more and get back on your regular routine. And I've yet to put 2 days together of that. Because once you stop, you gotta stay in the momentum. And
Exactly.
Consistency is key. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Owen had COVID and it was game ending.
Oh, it's
We
horrible.
were like, oh my God. What are we gonna do?
We're fucked.
just have a COVID episode. That's it. Let's talk about it.
Exactly.
We did just put out a little mini vlog about the COVID cast.
Yeah,
So we got all that.
Were you down and out with it?
I'm still coming up there.
Okay.
But it was, I had to take 2 weeks off of work. I was out of classes for 2 weeks. It was a great time. I got to edit the podcast the whole time, put together a bunch of short form content. It was great. But now I live in a single dorm on campus. So it was me and a TV for like 2 weeks. It was crazy.
Oh, man. We kick your ass. So
yeah.
first time round with it, or just happened to be a worse one?
It was number 3, and it was definitely the worst one.
Oh, all right.
But we live and we learn, and now we got week 9 out, so we're good.
Now we're on week 10.
That's it. You keep chipping away. Turn this a whole COVID episode. There were 3 times since January 2020 where I was like the sickest I've ever been. I was like, what? One was in February 2020, and like my whole family couldn't get up. If I felt like I was falling off of the earth. If I stood up, it just felt like the earth was spinning and I could feel it. Crazy stuff. And then in March it comes out. I was like, shit, like I probably had it before they officially declared an emergency.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I did the same thing. It's absolutely bizarre. Especially I work fast food through the entire pandemic. I mean, it was absolutely wild doing that every day, and people would get sick left and right. And I got sick plenty of times. It's like, is it COVID? Is it not? That we'd have to ask ourselves, and it was getting to the point where, the employers, multiple fast food employers, not even us, they wouldn't even believe you if you said you had COVID. You had to jump through some hoops and get some, tests and have it done by the urgent care, or had to be written by, signed by a doctor. Like it was no joke with how rapid it was.
Yeah, that's messed up. The frontline employees, the frontline businesses like that, where you have to be customer interacting. You can't do it just online. They didn't give a shit. They're like, hey, you're coming in, man. Like, we're not closing.
Yeah, we never closed, not one time because of COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, it's messed up. But my other 2 times I was super sick and I tested for COVID, nothing. And then when I did end up having it, I was like, I felt like 90% fine. Like I wouldn't even have said that I was sick. It just happened to be my kids were sick. And I was like, well, let's just test everybody. I was like, oh shit, I've got it. So
yeah,
it's a weird thing. It hits people differently. It's a weird, strange thing.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like the time I was the most sick with it was when I got the vaccine. I got the first shot when I had come out. I got it, and it was pretty brutal. It put me out. That was the only shot I got.
Yeah, again, that's it. It is weird how even, not just specifically this one, but all vaccines that they give you, they're like, well, hey, you don't want to get the flu, right? Like, no, I don't want to get the flu. Of course I'll get a vaccine. They're like, okay, well, now you're going to be sick for 3 days. Like, well, shit, why not just get the flu then?
Right, so
yeah, right.
The flu just to get the flu.
Yep.
Yeah. You're like, okay, great. Thanks for giving it to me. So at your campuses, are they instituting there's rumors of COVID policies coming back? There's, you're seeing in some places. Are your campuses telling you that you have to wear a mask in class?
So currently my campus, no. They've referenced that if it ends up becoming an issue, they'll get back to like masking and that kind of thing. But right now, what we're seeing is that they've turned our classes into what they call flex classes, basically saying that, you can come to class, you can come in person, but we're also streaming this. So you can take it from home. So I still go in person, but if, I ever feel like I don't want to get out of bed in the morning, I can just turn on the computer and
Yeah, I think that'd be the slippery slope for me that I had in community college. And we talked about podcasting, like, hey, you guys are up to how many episodes you have, and make sure you keep releasing those episodes, because once you're in that grind, you don't want to get off of it. And hey, once you log into a Zoom class for school, like, why am I getting up? Why am I getting dressed?
I make myself go to school. I can't not go to school. If I don't go to school, if I'm going online, I'm going to sleep through my classes. I'll say it right now. When I was in high school and we were going through COVID and we were on our way out, and all of our classes were online, can't tell you how many Zooms classes I slept through.
Oh yeah.
The teacher was talking.
What year were you in when it hit? What year of high school?
I was a junior.
And you just lost that whole year. The rest, I guess, was half that year, and you lose the next year too?
We lost the end half of our junior year, and then pretty much the entirety of senior year up until the end.
Man, that sucks. I'm sorry, guys. That's a fun time in life.
Yeah, it was too bad, but it's funny, like, we're 10 minutes away towns wise.
Yeah.
I think East Windsor was fully, everyone was fully remote for those full 2 years, but I know everybody else had hybrid options.
Yeah, we had the hybrid option where you could either attend school online or it's in person, but depending on what day of the week, some taking that class online. So it wasn't even a full week of school, really. Unfortunately, I really liked going to school. I learned to like school after I missed out on it for a good almost year or so. I really wanted to go back. It just really wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Makes you appreciate it.
It definitely does.
I mean, that's the silver lining now. It's not like you just went through all of it and you're like, oh, I need a break. And like, hey, this class is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're like, well, fuck Monday and I'm hungover and, fuck Friday, I'm going to go on party. And now you're like, hey, you know what? I actually had 2 years off of school. I did on Zoom and now I want to go every day. Yeah,
I think just learning to appreciate it more. And I definitely learned to say, you know what, like this is a place that, it's an escape almost at this point because, we were at home all the time and there wasn't anything to do. So it's more so just a place to connect and, you get to see your friends and all of that. And, now I come to appreciate it a lot more than, waking up and not wanting to go to high school. They've moved past that.
Yeah. What do your friends think of you guys doing a podcast?
Oh, we got some opinions. Definitely some opinions. Him and I have always been the chatty one in the friend group. We've always been the ones that kind of go off on our own and talk. So people don't necessarily hate it. I definitely wouldn't say they hate it. They support it.
They were very supportive at first, and then they weren't very supportive. But now they're starting to become supportive, and the more professional we've gotten.
Now that they're seeing that we're not like just doing it because it's another Ledger Owen business adventure, right? It's becoming more of the serious thing.
No, I think that's good, and that's good that they came around to support you too. See a lot of stories, and you'll experience in life sometimes that the people closest to you aren't always the biggest cheerleaders. Where like what you might do for somebody, they don't do back for you. But it sounds nice that like your group came back around for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's definitely a huge thing.
Do they give you topics to talk about?
We're trying to implement that.
So I will tell you this. They don't necessarily give us topics to talk about, but we respond to every comment we receive on all of our platforms. So we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube Shorts, we do Instagram Reels, primarily TikTok. So any of our comments we get on that, we'll read out on the podcast. And most of them are pretty nasty. Like, this podcast is awful. Like, what are you talking about? What your bone has? I think it's wicked funny. It's great.
We love it.
And we'll tag them in the post, and then they have to come back and watch us read their comment. You can't hide behind the phone.
No.
No such thing as bad publicity. They want to drag you. It's like, hey, you can leave whatever nasty review you want. Just make sure it's a 5-star one. Put 5 stars and then say like, this guy's an idiot and his guests are morons. Like, that's fine by me. Just make sure the 5 stars are there.
Yeah.
How have you guys going about expanding? You're just hitting all these socials on here and putting it out.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely trying to build it as much as we can. I know we tried to make like a business model at one point to kind of come up with this, growth plan. And a lot of it was, all organic, trying to just, taking TikTok videos that we make from our longer form podcast and being able to funnel them back into the YouTube kind of was like the broad scheme of things. But we started to learn that there's traction and places to build on Instagram. There's places to build on YouTube Shorts too, word of mouth, all that type of stuff.
I completely agree. Like he's saying, we're doing a lot of short-based stuff because we aren't actually in an RSS feed. We don't have a management system. We haven't gotten into that. So our stuff is just being posted up on YouTube and up on Spotify. We've thought about moving into it, but, it's not, we can do it, but kind of just seeing how it goes, just doing it organically with our short-form stuff.
Yeah, I think that's good. I'm still cautious. I don't know why. The video part, maybe I just don't have enough time for it, that the regular editing takes up enough. And
yeah.
And then to start going through, the TikToks of the world and things like that. I just don't think I'm there yet, but I do save all these videos so I can go back and revisit it at some point and, see how that goes.
Yeah, something we found recently is this video editor. It's called Opus Pro. I don't know if you've probably seen ads for it. It's like a AI video editing software. So basically you can upload a full-length video file or take the URL off a YouTube video. And what it will do is it will make clips off of your podcast video. So those caption videos that are on our TikTok and most of those we use that to take clips from us and make that, and then I'll do further editing on it to make it look a little bit better.
I haven't dipped my toes in the AI world yet of editing. Even for this, people are like, oh, there's somewhere you can get a program. We'll take out all the ums. Like, oh,
No,
damn.
we wouldn't do that.
No.
We wouldn't do that. It's more so just to get us the content for TikTok and Instagram and YouTube because it's so hard to make short form content.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's your favorite episode you've done so far, or what topics are you interested?
Ooh. I think we should go 1-on-1 here. You want to go first?
So my favorite episode I think we did, I'm gonna say is our most recent one that we just posted, AI and education. It was huge. We really delved into a lot of cool topics. We honestly went and just kept talking. It was crazy fun. That's probably my favorite one.
Yeah. I think that one's definitely a close second for me, just because of how organic the conversation is in that one. I think the one where we really first hit our stride, we did an episode on how malls have changed and the modern state of malls, those types of things. And I think that was the first time talking with Ledger, having this podcast, that we like really generated like organic thought and original thought, just like in the actual episode, not based off of something we were like talking points, if you know what I mean. Like we went in and we spoke about, in the future, we did some crazy like mindfuck thing of, malls that are online, you have to buy domains in order to sell through stores. Like it was this whole thing. We went into that and it was just super interesting. So that was one of my favorites.
The brick and mortar mall, like that shit's done.
Yeah.
But go in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's interesting.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's sad. There's a mall near me. It's called the Echelon Mall. It used to have an Exhilarama when I was in 5th or 6th grade, and it was this whole little arcade thing, like mini brides. They had a $2 movie theater, and it would show movies that were like 3 weeks or 4 weeks old, like this before it would come out for you streaming in like 6 weeks. This way, you had to wait 6 months to a year to be like, what I say? I saw the first Ace Ventura in there like 12 times because it was $2, and you get an endless bucket of popcorn for $1. Anyway, that whole mall is gutted. There's a Boscov's. The township that it's in has a store in there. I think there's a Verizon store. There's nothing in the food court anymore. And somebody just posted a picture on the local town page. And if it was cakes or candies, or somebody opened up a shop in there. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, oh, look at all the foot traffic. Like, there's no foot traffic. This is a giant indoor lapse for old people. That's all it is.
That's all it is around here. That's what happened to our mall too. We have a local mall that ended up being the same way. It used to have like a Sears and a Macy's, and it lost it. It only has a Target, keeping it alive. So we live on the highway corridor we live on. It's called Corridor of Knowledge, the Golden Corridor of Knowledge. Basically, our highway strip going up towards like Boston. They call it the Knowledge Corridor because people coming out of like Ivy League schools and top universities up in the Northeast here, they tend to live around here. So there's a lot of high-paying jobs. So they constructed all these malls up around us. So they're within 20 minutes of each other. So they just ate each other up. So now with online shopping, they just can't even survive. So the big ones survive, and the little ones like our mall, they kind of fell apart.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's sad for a lot of those things, and for how quickly it changed too. And even going back, and they have an open air one around us that they didn't have too much. I definitely don't think they had growing up. Like like a strip mall, but that's not open air. And it's just picture a mall. The stores are closed and they have doors that they can keep the weather out, but the inside of the mall is just all open and fresh air, and there's birds and planes and everything else. And you'll see it in movies in like California and Southern California if you ever went there. They have stuff like that. And I think that's good because people are kind of like walking in nature, and maybe I have to get something from here. But this is a giant monstrosity of a building. Like, I don't even know what these people are going to do. Like, you can't demo them and then build townhouses or whatever. Like, but that's all they're going to try to do. Or like, oh, we could put an Amazon warehouse here. Oh, great, another one.
Yeah, it's finding its use for the spaces after they've already kind of become decrepit, and getting rid of them is definitely the hard part. We see in our mall, the Enfield Mall, it's like churches now.
Yeah, we have a church, and then the problem is what's happening is these malls are getting older and older, and the longer these spaces are vacated, they need repairs. So the large buildings that once housed the Macy's, they have leaks coming into the roof. So now they're dangerous. They can't, do not enter. So now it's a problem. So at this point, it's whoever does decide to come in there, if anybody, now they have to put $200,000 in just to fix the space up, let alone get new furniture and flooring and that kind of thing.
as these ceilings are collapsing and everything, you can't even go hide there during the zombie apocalypse anymore. Like you have to find another place now. That was the go-to.
Yeah, they're totally useless now.
Yeah, like really, just thanks, guys. Just let the zombies in.
Exactly.
So do you guys shoot ideas off each other leading up to before you record, or do you just bring it like it's one person's responsibility?
So whenever we come in, we touch on it in a few episodes. We roll in to the studio, great grandma's basement, and we kind of just come up with an idea on the fly. I'll bring food because obviously Ledger hosts the podcast, and we'll kind of sit down and be like, all right, what do we want to talk about today? We could base it off current events. We could base it off a series we're trying to build, maybe a direction we're trying to turn the podcast. Like lately, we've been finding a lot of joy in talking about AI. So whenever we come to the studio, we want to base it on something in like the realm of AI. So like, AI in education, business, film, those types of things. But a lot of the times, I wouldn't call it last minute, but it's more we want to come up with it and be passionate about it in the moment. So in that way, we have more to talk about rather than predetermining a schedule. I
would say 90% of the time, I don't send questions out to people from to talk to them. Someone might say like, hey, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, oh, let's just touch on like A, B, and C. But I don't have a sheet in front of me. Like, oh, great. Now I'm going to ask Ledger, in 2019, what did you think? Like, that's not going to go anywhere. And it's going to be boring and nobody wants to pay attention to that. And so I think, as it leads up to it, an hour or two before, I'll start brainstorming and get excited about an idea. And if I ever try to do that too far in advance, when I try to recreate that same excitement isn't there. And I'm like, shit, what did I think about 3 days ago that I didn't write down? And, it gets to be a little tough sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I was we talked to another podcaster today, and we had a good conversation about this. And I've always said, you can't make a boring structure for the podcast. If we have a structure and we say, all right, we're going to talk this and we're going to say this and this, then that's not a podcast. That's basically just a movie at that point.
Or like a radio show. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You have a script. We're not reading a script. The greatest thing about it is just being able to formulate these topics on the go. And that's why we have so much fun with it. Because if we were just reading a paper, it'd be nothing.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older and, started thinking about marketing more or thinking about, production of things, and you start listening to morning radio, how painful that has to be. Morning radio is like 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. or whatever. They're like, you're rolling in at 4 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever it is, to have these pre-production meetings where you're having half those same conversations. You're like, oh, hey, Ledger, I'm going to say this, and now you chime in and tell your bit about this. And it's just so artificial. It's just, it's terrible. There's such better ways. For people who I talk to, like some people still don't listen to podcasts. And they're like, why would I do that? Just listen to the radio. Like, it's so much better. It's not artificial. And you can also find any topic that you're interested in and listen to, hours of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely getting to the point now where I think podcasts, at least where I'm finding with this New England page, it's like podcasts, they've been around for many, many years now, but it's getting to the point where a lot of small independent creators are now kind of forming up and being able to build their own content. The content is so much more, well, for the most part, the content we're seeing out there is so much more knowledgeable and intellectual than anything you could find on the radio out there. It's so much more interesting. And there's so many niche podcasts where you could basically find a show about anything you want to listen to, where with the radio, you get what you get. You got the guys on the rock station, you got the guys on the, Light 100. It's just, that's what it is.
Yeah. Even though it's still there and it's been around for, 100 years now, it's not a long-term successful format that they still have. People just went to Sirius and XM and all that so they could just listen to music nonstop. But these morning shows, the talk radio, the sports talk radio, the guy calling in, all that has to go. It's so much better if you want to listen to, local Sixers talk, you want to listen to local Eagles talk. Like you can find people who have hours and hours and new content of it. You're not listening to something from a week ago or whatever it might be that's just, not relevant.
Yeah, it keeps things very current, keeps things like you said, finding a niche, being able to see whatever you want to talk about, right? Up here, everything for sports podcasts, everything rivals each other. So it's like, you could have the podcast that talks about the Patriots and maybe how bad they are, but then, ESPN radio up here, because it's all based down in Bridgeport, or I think it's Bridgeport. They're talking about these things, but obviously in a formatted manner. So it keeps things not as original, kind of to your point. So it's less organic.
One of the things I hate is pre-recorded. I hate when I know, like, do you ever tell, like, if something's pre-recorded, like, you'll be listening to it, and they won't even state that it's pre-recorded, but then you'll hear something and like, wait a minute, this is totally pre-recorded. That frustrates me a lot when it's like, I really wish things were live. I like when it's live, at that moment instead of, oh, this was recorded 2 hours ago. And now I'm listening to it. It's not as cool.
No.
Yeah, you definitely want it as it's happening. That's kind of hard with the current events, unless you're recording live and putting it out and things like that. So like the breaking news stuff, like I don't really have too much on my podcast, but like if something happened within the last week that would still say, fresh and relevant, I would stay on that. I had an interview with Jeffrey Wilson from the Conspiracy Farm, and he came on, and we recorded on a Wednesday. He does current events, and I guess he tends to get a little more political or outspoken against certain factions of how the country's going. And my general thing is just like both parties suck, and we need to fix everything. But as we were talking and going through, yeah, you'll see. So like 5 questions that I asked them, 5 topics we covered. And the next night was the Republican first debate or something. And 3 of the 5 questions were in that debate. I was like, shit, this wasn't going to go out till a week later, but like I need to put this out, the next day, or otherwise people are like, you just got your talking points from, a debate. Like that's a little fucking weird.
Yeah, we do a little bit of current event stuff, but it's not to that caliber. We talked about little things we'll see pop up. We do this little segment. It was called Flip 5. So basically, it's 5 topics in 5 minutes, and we'll run through topics and cover them. We're kind of moving on format to see if we really want to keep doing that. It's hard. We've talked about a little bit about like short form content. It's hard to keep viewership with that. So we're kind of working to see what we're going to do. But current events is definitely one of our topics, something we'd like to cover and something we'd like to continue to cover because we find it really interesting, especially when we're covering these things in the spur of the moment, and there's a lot of good organic conversation coming out of it.
What are the areas of current events that interest you? Like when you jump on Twitter or whatever, with your streaming, you're scrolling to try to find something. What are your eyes going to?
I mean, we kind of hit anything that's happened in the week. We've done, would you call it 3 Flip 5s? We've recorded 3 Flip 5s and then split them up. We've recorded in the weeks where Jimmy Buffett had passed. We've recorded in the weeks, the Ice Spice drink just came out at Dunkin'. We talked about that, talked about the WWE merger. I mean, there's so many different things. We kind of, it also becomes a spur of the moment thing too, kind of like our podcast ideas. We'll sit down after we've recorded our main episode and we're like, all right, what's big in the news right now? We'll go on Apple News. We'll go on Instagram to see what's in our feeds. I guess to answer your question, obviously in a broad way, I mean, it's really anything that's interesting in that week.
I probably mix all that stuff in regularly, as I talk about, and not put in a special segment. And the only thing I really try to steer clear from is to hammer one side of politics more than the other, instead of just, burn it all down.
Yeah, we don't touch politics.
Yeah, politics, religion are kind of our big X's.
Yeah, we won't touch it. It's hard because a lot of the college scene now and our main viewers, it's a touchy subject we really don't want to get into.
Yeah, so instead we just trash, bad celebrity collabs and different marriages that happened. Keep it trendy.
Yeah, maybe once a month. I'm like, shit, if I just went really hard one way, I could get so many more followers, like instantly overnight. Like if I just veered one way. But I have no interest. That does not excite me at all. I follow that through Twitter to see what's happening, and I'm exhausted by it. I couldn't imagine wanting to talk to people, deep dive, whatever it is afterwards. I would want to kill myself probably.
Yeah, it's tough because everybody's very, very opinionated. It's really hard. Something I've really come to realize is that it's strength far, far, far away from what really the foundation of America is on, and that's people can have their own beliefs, and we're all entitled to our own beliefs, but sometimes it feels that one side might be more heavier than the other, and people don't agree, and it just ruins it because that's not what we're all about. That's what this country is about. This country is about working together in unity to come up with a common goal or solution.
No, yeah, I think that's definitely the right way. And this could be idealistic and me looking back when I'm 18, but I definitely think the political scene was, if you were left or right, it wasn't too far from the center. You kind of just weaved back and forth. And most people were left and right. And like, oh, I really like this social issue, but then also I think that there should be this too. And like by issue, whatever it was, you'd have your own opinion on it. And it didn't matter if like it differed. Like you also wouldn't know most people's opinions. Like, I'd be like, I really think that, minimum wage should be $1,000 an hour. And, Ledger might be like, well, in capitalism, it really should only be about $15 to drive the price. And we wouldn't get into a screaming match. We'd just be like, oh, okay, that's what you think. That's weird. I don't see it that way, and move on. But now, there's compromise, or I just don't give a shit. Like, okay, that's what you think. Like, no problem. But here, like, you have to like beat people into submission, and then like call up their school, like, oh, you should kick this guy out, man. He's the left wing communist, right wing Nazi. Like, oh my god, like get over yourself, people.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's definitely weird, especially with the scene we are being younger and kind of popping into it now. It's like people our age are either very, very reserved about their opinion, or there's the select few who are very, very loud with their opinion. It's tough because I don't know what the point of this country is going to come to, especially when the people who are in our generation are going to start coming into office and that kind of thing. But it's definitely going to be weird because I don't know what people's opinions are, because nobody's really brave enough to talk about it because they're worried of being shunned or attacked or anything, being made fun of, bullied, whatever you want to call it. But it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see it also kind of being this like Facebook thing. Like if you go, you'll see your crazy uncle or somebody you knew in high school, and like they just talk to an echo chamber and they just put a comment out there, but not to see the other side of it. Just have everybody tell them like how much great and they agreed they are with it. And now like your crazy uncle, he's probably not look back on his life and be like, oh, I shouldn't have spent so much time on Facebook. I just think all these people who are super active in politics at a young age without like a general direction, instead of just like, hey, I'm parroting whatever I saw on whatever side news that I follow. You're just going to come out of this in 10 years and be like, shit, man, like I wasted a lot of my life, because your views are going to change as you get older, or as you have experiences, or like things you can't even comprehend. And like, I would never think I would change my opinion on this. And shit, 10 years later, you're like, oh my God, like that was either such a immature, uninformed, or also something else happened. You're like, no, we really need this. I think there'll be a lot of wasted. People are very disappointed in themselves in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Social media definitely presents people's political opinions, and it's the digital footprint of that and where people are leaving their opinions, and it's crazy because pretty much anybody can see it now. I mean, I've known plenty of people who I knew this gentleman when I was in high school, and he was very, very right-leaning. And it was very well known within the school that he was very well right-leaning, and some people liked that and some people didn't. But he ended up going very left-leaning and going and flying out to California.
Really?
It's absolutely wild. So it's like, even if you think you know, you don't know.
Nope.
Because it can change in a second.
Yeah. Just become as informed as you can by read the other side of what they say, what you believe, and then, maybe try to see that way. And not to get convinced the other way, but like just to see the flaws and maybe you're thinking, you're like, no, that person's completely wrong. What I think is this. But if you always just keep reading the same people that are in your echo chamber, you're not going to see where you're wrong at. Or if you might not be wrong, but who knows?
I like what you're saying there. It's almost like you're touching the concept of like people, they'll believe a certain political, they'll believe in a political party, they'll believe right leaning or left leaning, whatever. But when you're affiliated with a political party like that and you're expressing your political opinions online, or you're reading certain articles from certain journalists and publications, what will happen is you'll only be targeted at certain publications. The days of reading the newspaper with different reporters and different journalists, those are over. Nobody gets the paper anymore. They're reading from whatever Fox or CNN or any other large corporation, or even the small ones. They're reading that. They're very, very targeted and opinionated and biased articles, which are that's what they want. They want people to keep tuning in because they like hearing their own opinion. That's just natural. People like hearing themselves. People like hearing what they like to think. But it's unfortunate because prior to the big online presence of these, we're young, but I can even remember the day of newspapers. Like I can remember reading papers, and there were so many different opinions in it. And it's just not like that anymore. It's really unfortunate because even with the younger generation of ourselves, they're being targeted with, we said this in but the articles on my phone, they're not going to be the same on Owen's phone. We might have different opinions, and the technology that exists is attacking on that. They know what you're into, they know your interests, and they know what parties you might support. Yeah,
there was a term that came out a few years ago, and I hated it from day one, but it was always like my personal truth. Like, this is my personal truth. And you're like, well, that's not real. Like, there's like the truth. And now fast forward a few years later, and there's nothing but personal truths. Like, the three of us could live in completely different worlds and not understand the other person's opinion, yet think we are completely right, just based on our newsfeed algorithm that's crafted for us, that we read and never see if what we read was correct, was corrected in the future. Like, it's very strange.
It's a strange age of media. Definitely a good way to put it. Just the way that things have transformed to be opinion based on what the reader wants to be correct. Where, like we talk about with all of our AI episodes and everything like that, everything's targeted. So you bring up a good point there. Like, to build off what Ledger was saying too, like when we were looking through for our Flip 5 segments and the current event things, when we go on our Apple News apps on our watch, the 5 featured stories are always different. And that's always just based on, again, what we see, what our search history is, what all those things are. It's just fascinating to think that it's like those days of general information are gone. Everything's targeted now.
Yeah. I mean, Owen's a big pop culture guy. I'm not. He's a big sneaker guy, and I'm not. So he's targeted a lot of different things than I am. He'll be like, oh, did you hear that? No. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
He knows this because it's what he's being targeted.
Yeah, it's also funny. So my son, he just started school for his new grade, but last year he would come home and like to quiz me on history. And he'd be like, hey, Dad, who discovered America? And, in 3rd grade, I knew that answer off the top of my head. But as you get older and you're like, well, like, who are we talking about here? Who discovered? Are we talking about the Native Americans? Are we talking about, before that, the Vikings were up in the New Hampshire, New England area over there? Are we talking about that they're like the Spanish down in Florida? Like, who are we talking about? And then he, like, as I'm sitting here going, he's like, you don't know it's Christopher Columbus? I'm like, oh, damn it. Like, way overthought this one. But it's also like, at what point do you correct your books? And is it, what general knowledge was, like, you actually go back and the more you know, like, maybe you should update your books.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like with, the age of technology and the more readily available information, I feel like there's definitely been benefits where certain things and certain knowledge that people didn't know before, and directions where they were steered wrong and wrongly steered, and maybe, through advertising, false advertising, or, learning things that weren't true. The internet definitely provided a good packing to say, hold on 1 minute, like, this is actually true. It has its benefits, but then it also has things where it's very opinionated, and that's not general knowledge. Very opinionated things are not general knowledge. That's not facts at that point. That's opinionated facts at that point. No. All facts are in some form biased, but at that point, you're just reading someone else's opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with marketing as you further into that role, just more the targeted marketing. There's not somebody sitting down at Sears, and like, hey, this is our fall catalog, and make sure you put the vacuum on the front page, and, hey, make sure that dishwasher's there, and, everybody likes the color purple, do that. But now it's just going to be okay. Hey, it's showing that like 3% of this demographic is really into this, and I've created this whole marketing campaign that we're just going to do this now. And then people are, I feel it would probably be more likely to be like, yeah, let's do that for this one, and now let's get a separate marketing campaign for. But it's not the, hey, moms love meatloaf or whatever, and there's dad out here mowing the lawn. Like, you don't have that anymore.
Yeah, like the days of general marketing, like you're talking about, are over. And again, as you said, targeted marketing is like the new thing. Being able to have multiple, kind of flying around. The days of being able to have one campaign are totally out the window. You have to sell to a target audience, point blank, period. Because if you don't, your product's not going to sell. Like, we're not, for example, we're not trying to sell to like 16 and under. You know what I mean? Like, our product as the podcast is not to elementary school kids, which it could be, but we're obviously not tailoring it to that. We pick the demos we're going for, and we change things as we need to, just to kind of fall into those different marketing pitches, if you can call it that.
But if anybody happens to find the podcast and you get clicks and views and they buy your merch, you're not against that.
Oh, 100% no. If people want to watch, they can watch 100%.
Yeah. But nothing like under the Christmas tree is a FlipCast coffee mug or something for, a 6th grader.
I'm telling you, we got to sell these.
I mean, we got our own custom mugs right here. They're not available longer yet.
Get enough demand. I mean, hey, we'd be happy to make them.
Yeah. So I set up a merch store probably a month ago. Like, I want to hold all this product. My buddy, he does some marketing for a small business, and it's like this camping thing. And so I was talking to him about it. I was like, are there like print on demand stuff? Like, I don't want to have a garage full of t-shirts. And he's doing a lot of the holding merchandise. He's saying like stickers, like a big thing, and they go and everything. I found this online company that will just print on demand what I want. Like, I just create the product, which is really simple, and put the logo on whatever it is, and as people order. Now, like, am I missing like one? I'll probably never become a millionaire doing it by holding the merchandise, and by having someone else doing 99% of the work, I'm certainly never becoming a millionaire. But it's fun. Every once in a while, I get a picture from somebody who listens. They'll send me an email with it, and I see somebody in the wild wearing my shirt.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that's that age definitely now of like drop shipping and that kind of consumerism where, a larger third-party company is doing all the heavy work, and you have a smaller business, an independent, business, the creator, and they're kind of just outsourcing it. I've seen plenty of, I even tried dabbling in drop shipping, that kind of thing, and, trying that kind of idea of having someone else hold their inventory, but listing it and that kind of thing. It's really tough. It really is.
Yeah, there's a guy on YouTube. He's like, it's a quick 2-hour video and you can do all this stuff. And I was, oh man, 6 hours into watching a 2-hour video. I was like, I don't understand any of this shit.
Yeah. I mean, I'll hit you with something here. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Andrew Tate and the Hustlers University thing.
Is this good? Should I need to learn copyright and I get 10 G's a month, right?
Yeah. So I ended up looking into it. I ended up purchasing the 50-month book.
Did you actually?
I did.
Oh, shit.
See what it was all about. And it's crazy. Let me tell you, it's something that you really have to be passionate about. I mean, it's young people in there. I mean, you don't really know what their credit is because what the businesses they're running, it's not like, the CEO of Sears or the CEO of this company. I sold $20,000 in soccer balls online. That's what I did. I made money off that. So, you kind of have to believe that and believe that process. And, they have plenty of videos and discussions on it. I was taking their online store course. They had an online store building drop shipping. I tried it because I tried drop shipping before and it didn't work. And I tried the Hustlers University version. And to some degree, there was very good knowledge in it where it walks you through the process of building store pretty streamlined, but, there's a lot of people who are doing the course and they're all doing the same thing. So yes, you're learning valuable information, but what you're not learning, which is you won't learn anywhere, is, how to set yourself apart from other people.
That is true.
You will never learn that in his thing because it's not about that. It's just almost like a foundation. So I don't pay for it anymore. I gave up and then we started the podcast.
Yeah.
But it's like that pyramid scheme or, your friend who's going to start selling life insurance and it's not going to work for everyone. 90% of the people are going to quit and be like, oh man, I was involved in some type of scam. Luckily, I didn't waste too much time or too much money or whatever it is. But there are people in those scams who are making a killing. So there's going to be people coming out of that Andrew Tate course, who, have just the Ritalin focus to sit here and go through and come out there on top, where everyone else is just, you either start seeing the holes or you're like, well, maybe I can go do something else. But somebody who's just like, maybe you need nothing to hold on to. And those people are just like, fuck, like if I don't get this, I truly have nothing.
Yeah. Some people are very passionate. They give the testimonials of people who've made it. And I remember when I had ended up unsubscribing from it, I clicked the unsubscribe button. It literally prompts you with testimonials of Andrew Tate and the people in the school and telling you why you're a loser and why you should quit and why you should keep going and keep going, don't go back to the matrix and that kind of thing. They try to keep you in that. It's crazy. There are some people who are extremely passionate and people who are, and it was interesting because the people within the course would, show you their online store. They'd say, hey, tell me what you think, drop it in front of everybody in the chat and say, tell me what you think of my store. And you would click. Some of them were very, very good, and some of them looked really amazing. Like, wow, I wonder how much these people are doing. Some of them were making thousands and thousands of dollars, but some of them you clicked and it looked like the tutorial that you were shown in the videos for the class. So it's like, well, you're just copying and pasting it in here. What are you really learning? You're just doing what they say. You're in the matrix.
Exactly.
It's exactly what you were supposed to do.
I think after I hit unsubscribe and Tate came on there and told me I'm not going to escape the matrix, I think I probably would cancel my cancel. I'd go back in. I'd be like, hey,
you would go back in.
I'd have to go back.
I'm going to be honest. I understand.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it'd be tough to quit from that guy. I know he's had his problems or, his setup, whatever it might be, but that guy goes around his little scooter or whatever he's on and around his giant mansion and past all his cars. I'm like, shit, man, guy's got something going.
It actually, that's something I've been thinking about. It puts a lot of, puts a whole new meaning to that business model where you talk about, the pyramid scheme idea where it's, one person finds success in such a niche little thing. Like, let's say I used to know a guy who would sell on Amazon. He'd go to Walmart and he'd be like the Amazon, verified shopper or shipper or whatever it is. And he'd buy remote control T-Rexes for $100 and then upsell them for $200 on Amazon and like made a killing with it. And it's one of those things where you find that niche and you like get lucky one time pretty much. And then that just starts the cycle of you being like, oh, I'm going to start a course and show you my Shopify course and all these types of things. Like personally, it works. Like it can work. It's just I've always been a denier of it almost because it's such a risk.
You're gambling.
It's a total gamble. Yeah.
You got to gamble because the big gamble with it is, yes, like if it's a drop shipping, your products are free, but at the same time, you have to advertise. And, social media advertising is so outrageously expensive to get any form of traction. So it's
yeah.
Two quick stories. Your buddy doing that Amazon and Walmart thing, like that's brilliant. I was talking to my one friend about it before that we ran into a shore house when my son was probably 3, like the first time, like it's a family shore house we were going to do. I was like, oh, well, he needs a boogie board. We need to get all this stuff. But we were going in September in the off season. So all that stuff like sold out. Like Target didn't have that stuff and like Walmart and wherever else. So I went on Amazon and it was $40 for this boogie board. It's like, oh man, like I don't want to spend $40. This is bullshit. Like, my kid's first time, like this will be great. I got to get on this. And I get it. And it had the Five Below sticker on it. So they just went and bought all this stuff at Five Below. They're reselling it now for $40, making that killing. Like there's such a, targeted marketing. People are going on vacation, don't want to bring all their crap from across the country, wherever they're going. And be like, well, hey, the boogie board, it's $5 at Five Below. It's $40 in the boardwalk, not anywhere else. So what's that fair price that somebody is willing to take that hit and not have to drag it across wherever they're coming from?
Agreed.
It's a crazy thing. Reselling's a huge part of my life and his life as well. We've both had experiences with it, which we go into in different podcasts, but just the concept behind it is that there's money to be made anywhere in this world. Just matters how much, or not how much, how high the demand is for a certain product that someone cannot easily get their hands on.
Yeah, some of the stuff, the sneakers, the reselling of the sneakers, I've got buddies that'll post stuff on Facebook or whatever they do. The one guy goes to this open air flea market and sells his stuff. And it just seems crazy. It seems crazy he would pay that much money for sneakers. It seems, especially if they were worn, like, oh, only worn once and they're $450. Like, well, that's like $100 pair of sneakers. I don't know. But you're a sneaker guy. Maybe you see that different than I do. I see people kicking you at a concert, stepping on them, like your kids spill orange juice on them. I was like, well, all right, there goes my New Balances.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's such a crazy concept. It's like it's a status thing. I don't know if you have the pair of kicks that everyone wants, and you were the first one to get them on drop day, and everyone else has to pay $400, but you only paid $110. You can choose to either wear the shit out of your shoes and be like, yeah, I'm the man, or you go flip it and go make more money, and then you go keep going in on that cycle.
Listen, I have to lay a red carpet every time Owen comes in this house. There's dirt on the floor. It's game on.
That's insane. I'm out. If I get dirt on my shoes,
shoe booties on. He's got the little blue shoe booties shuffling around. Under these, man, are Yeezys. You understand?
Yeah, man. You don't get it, Ledger. You don't get it.
Yeah. Ledger and I rocking our New Balance 560 dad barbecuers. We're enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not a big sneaker guy.
We got you into shoes for a little bit.
I was in the shoes for like 2 seconds, and then I beat the snot out of one pair. I'm done.
Yeah, your band, you guys can't have, like, you're gonna go up there, people are spilling drinks, people are bumping into each other, you're doing your thing, and you're gonna come out with them all scuffed and be like, what the fuck, man? I just made whatever you guys make, and then you're like, oh, that was all the sneakers right there.
Yeah. We don't. I mean, a lot of free gigs, that kind of thing. Not enough to cover a nice pair of slippers. I mean, I had my saxophone destroyed on gigs. So
So I saw you guys had a clip for UFOs, but I didn't get to watch it. They've been big in the news now. I don't think I've really talked to people who have grown up in that Independence Day world where it seems aliens are almost commonly accepted from 2000 on. How do you guys feel about it? Did you pay attention to those hearings? Like, what do you guys think about it?
I know our opinions differ on this one. I'm a believer. I think that there could be something out there. I don't know. There's no reason not to think so. But in my humble opinion, the bodies that were shown in the Mexican Congress hearing, they were cake. They could have been something. I don't know. They didn't seem real.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily believe in it. I really don't, because my thought process is, it's like, the Earth is very old, and humans have been around for a very, very long time, and you could make the argument that there maybe was some form of alien contact at one point, maybe before the days of written knowledge, or it was lost in the Great Fire and whatever, and we lost it in the library. And I make the argument, and everybody always says this argument, but if they existed, we would have seen touchdown by now.
You raise a good point.
I believe that. I do believe that if there's another planet out there, like an Earth-like planet, if we're referring to aliens as just like any like mammal-like creature, living, breathing, that kind of thing. I mean, I can believe that there might be other fish and organisms and that kind of thing out there on the planet with an ocean, but in terms of like high intelligence beings, I really don't see it. Like, I don't see it existing like that.
What do you guys like think about like the Spider-Verse or interdimensional or things like that? No chance of them coming from there?
I don't know. I don't buy a multiverse kind of vibe from at least our generation. I mean, I don't think that would be. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about a multiverse?
The argument of like, there's different timelines and there's different dimensions where, certain things go different ways and time travel and that kind of thing. But it's just a really hard concept because it's a concept. We don't know if it's real. You can't exactly prove it. You can make theories, you can provide so much information, but it's not something where it's 100% tangible, where I can watch a video of Brian from the podcast going to, the Spider-Verse and hanging out with Peter Parker. You can't see it, so it's very hard to believe it.
When I land that interview, man, you're going to say it.
Right. He's going to be with the alien or Peter Parker.
Exactly.
But it's something I've noticed is like, people from the early ages, even before the time of, media and radio and more time of written work, the concepts which those people believed in back then, they believed in some crazy things that, we would say now, like, man, that doesn't make any sense. But they truly believed in like, monsters and that kind of thing, of these like creatures that lived out there in the oceans or up in the mountains. And, you think of something, maybe they were real, maybe they did actually see them, but you can't prove it because they never saw it. It's just written in the book.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it's a hard concept to kind of swallow.
I like what you're saying about the people from before and like they had monsters and stuff, but they also didn't have street lights and flashlights. So if you're in the dark and you're in the woods and you're just like hanging out with your buddies or whatever, like there's noises and you're like, what the fuck was that? Like, did you guys hear that? Did you hear that? But now, like, mountain lions don't really, whatever, maybe they come out during the day, or a panther, whatever it might be. There's stuff that doesn't really come out at day and it hunts at night. So if you're just sitting around your small little campfire or just went out and you're ready to go to bed and you start hearing stuff, you're like, oh my God, there was a T-Rex, like whatever they might have described. But it would just be so loud to you and you can't see. There's like, oh, shine your flashlight. It doesn't exist. So them in the daytime, then they're drawing these things, these giant monster things, whatever it is. I do agree a UFO would have to land. I think 5 years ago, I'm like, oh, UFO has to land at the White House. And now even if it landed at the White House, I'm like, no, still not. Probably fake video, probably fake. It has to land at my house. And like, that's probably the only way I'm going to believe something. The CGI is so good for everything. There's this awesome video that will pop up on Twitter of this little like 3-year-old, and he's walking on the sidewalk and has a little curb and he's holding onto the railing, and he's 3, so he has like no balance and he's like slipping off, but he's still holding on to the thing. And the dad is just starting to superimpose or layer whatever things on there. And he's like, oh, great, we'll take the sidewalk out now and we're going to add the waterfall behind him. And just as he's talking and doing all this stuff, it looks like the kid's on the inside railing of like Niagara Falls. And every time he slips, it looks like he's going to slip into the waterfall. Now, if I knew anything about videos, I probably could look at it or be like, oh, obviously that was put in here. I don't know any of that shit. So if somebody's going to put the alien on the White House lawn shaking Joe Biden's hand, I have to decide, did that happen or is that bullshit? I'm going to lean towards that was bullshit.
Yeah, deepfake technology like that, you could have anybody say anything. It's so dangerous. It's getting really, really good where I see videos of like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un dancing together. And, you're like, man, like it's obviously not real, but it's going to get to a point where you can have, someone sit down and make it look like they're saying anything and get someone in a lot of trouble. I mean, if aliens, that kind of thing, you can convince anything. You think of the days of like, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the only way that was averted was through conversations with people. But now it's like you can make anybody say anything. So it doesn't matter like that anymore. It could get people into a lot of trouble.
It's very true.
Yeah. And it went from choppy technology of, the AI animation type thing to you're seeing stuff now. You're like, wow, that's like barely noticeable. And give that another year, 2, 5 years, and you have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why that kind of thing, it's like you get to a point where you're like, what's the regulation? What do we, like you had spoken about before, like what is the regulation on this and what, precautionary steps are we taking, to limit where this is going or, the hands of the people that are getting into it because, most people have ill intentions and, they're gonna do some crazy things and, You don't want the video of the UFO landing, or Joe Biden saying he's going to nuke Ukraine, or not Ukraine, but Russia. He's going to send a bomb over there, or because it'll just get us into a lot of trouble. And it's a scary, scary point, because you don't know what people are going to get into.
And it's with that, everyone wants their 5 seconds of fame too. So whatever they can do to get that is going to inevitably happen. And then at that point, it's going to screw over whoever it does. And people aren't looking at the greater good anymore. It's definitely a huge change.
Yeah, you see how many morons do like bomb scares or whatever. And like what's the point of doing that? Like, I don't understand. Like, what thrill are you getting? And there's just going to be some computer nerd who's going to be like, I'm just going to make Joe Biden say he's going to nuke Ukraine, which would be a complete 180 from him. But also, like, maybe he did say it. I'm not putting it past anybody. It's going to be an interesting world. You have to have like double verifications for everything to see. I don't know how they're going to navigate that.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if you heard the hearing, but there was an interview with Elon Musk afterwards, and there was something he said that was really worth noting. He mentioned how we're very reactionary. We only react to things once it happens. So I feel like we won't really know what the implications are going to be until something crazy does happen. And someone does, do something crazy and get someone into trouble, and someone gets hurt or something gets destroyed. We won't know what's going to happen until that point comes.
Do you think he's going to make it to Mars in your lifetime? Do you think a civilization will be living on there?
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. It's one of those things where I'm really hopeful that, there can at least be human presence, that someone, there will be an individual who can walk on Mars. I don't see it like a full-on habitat, people living up there and, an igloo or a bubble home. And I don't think it'll be at that point, but I think hopefully somebody will walk the surface.
I think it would definitely be a buzzer beater in our lifetime. 98, 99, maybe cusping triple digits,
100, and we'll be sitting in our rocking chairs, reminiscing this podcast,
or recording episode 2000, doing whatever we're doing.
They're going to pop the Neuralink in you guys and live forever.
Yeah, right. We're going to be good. So much FlipCast.
So you guys have any opinions on the Neuralink? Do you think that's good for society?
Neuralink, I have a personal opinion, and I wouldn't do it. I really wouldn't, but I think that the integration of human intelligence and then artificial intelligence and that kind of thing, there's a lot of good benefits that come from it. You can definitely do some very far out things with it, but again, it's one of those things where you're really tapping into the realm of the natural science, natural form, natural life. You're scrapping that and ripping that apart into pulling us into this really new territory where it's a weird subject, and I don't really know how to feel about it. I don't know if you have an opinion on it.
It's one of those things where I'm all about innovation. Again, with moderation, I'm all about innovation. I'd love to see it progress in my lifetime. I don't know if I'd personally be the guinea pig for it. My mom and I are huge Black Mirror fans, so I've seen too much of that type of stuff to fall into the trap. But I don't know. It's like, as long as it's not tested on me, I'd like to see it in action. But at the same time, I know it would inevitably have to be tested on everybody. So
we'll see if it's in the monkey, and we'll see the monkey dancing around and whatever.
Yeah.
It thinks about a banana, and the banana comes off the conveyor belt. Maybe that point, but again, I don't know. I see people now with people who get their chip in their hand.
Oh yeah.
They can take their hand and tap the reader. That freaks me out too. It's like, man, someone could just come up with your hand, or you could put your hand down at the bus stop on the bench. And what if there's a reader in that thing, and that can steal your information, just like these skimmers on all the gas pumps? What if that's the point where you put your hand down on the counter at the TVs and, oh my God, someone just got all your information? That really scares me.
It is. It's dystopian future. Scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Elon just put in, it was either yesterday or today, he put in asking for approval for human testing in the Neuralink. So we're past the monkey phase. He's going to go for the human one. And I think if you have a disability, or, if you're permanently injured, whatever it might be, hey, all for do whatever to get your mobility back, get your sense of life back. It's the healthy people, the mobile people that, I do get concerned about.
Yeah, I think it gets to the point where it's almost like giving people superpowers, and they're like, what does that look like when you're giving someone some of these abilities? What can people do with that? There's smart people out there who can mess with things and craft it to what they want. And it's even with the simplest forms of technology, there's always somebody trying to change it. You have iPhones that are jailbroken, you have computers that are hacked, you have game systems that are hacked so that you can play a game. Those are just simple things, they're not really hurting anybody, but what is this going to do? If someone tampers with this could be huge, devastating implications.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be like, what was that Matthew McConaughey movie? He knew everything. He took the little pill. And it's going to be like that in real life. Like, you're going to have internet computing power at your fingertips in your brain instead of like, oh, let me just Google this. Like, you're going to think it's going to be Googled and be right there. Limitless, I think it was Matthew McConaughey. Limitless, good movie.
That sounds right.
Yeah. My other concern is there was a shitty Steven Spielberg movie, but a better book, Ready Player One. And it talked about kind of what Zuckerberg wanted to do with the metaverse, what he was trying to do. But, you're going to log in with VR glasses and run on treadmills, whatever it is. And you're going to spend your entire life living in a shanty, but yet interacting in this virtual world. And some stuff in the virtual world is like pretty cool. Like, whatever your favorite movie is, you get to be the main actor and act through the movie. And the more you say the lines right, you get bonus points and credits, like money, whatever. And you get to act in, Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Independence, like whatever it might be. Limitless, like, here you go. You get to be Matthew McConaughey. And, I just find that to be this like slippery slope of it's going to be pretty enticing for some people who either, just aren't happy with their existence or not happy with the way of the world, or kind of just get tricked or pushed in the wrong direction to go in here. That's going to be really hard to come out when everything's at your fingertips. You can be in Bermuda in a heartbeat. You can be hiking the Alps in a heartbeat, but it's not real. Like, it's still not that authentic conversation we were talking about. It's not that authentic experience. There's something different.
It's totally different. I mean, I had the Oculus, the Meta Oculus, the current technology. I mean, it's very limited now. It's not something. I mean, you know damn well that you're sitting in your bedroom and you have your shirt off, you have a big fat pair of goggles on your face, and you're swinging your arms around like you have a lightsaber. And
you're really selling this, man. I'm about to go buy it.
Yeah, you might need to buy it.
You'll love it.
I get rid of it because I just got to the point where it's like I couldn't enjoy it anymore because it's like, man, I miss hanging out with Owen. I miss hanging out with my friends. Like, you could meet your friends in the virtual world and play dodgeball or play baseball, but it's not the same as, getting a big fat dodgeball in the face and, or, playing baseball and running and falling and having a bruise on your leg. It's not the same. It's such a, I know there's like the sensory stuff that's coming where they're going to be able to like feel and that kind of thing, which might change the game a little bit, but its current state now, it's just not something that seems really feasible. It's just not feasible at all.
Yeah, all this stuff's definitely coming, and it's just a matter of how much is bought in, or it's really how much is bought in. And I think it's going to be forced for a lot of things. How a lot of technology, like you might not like an iPhone or a cell phone, or you might not like a laptop. Like, oh, I prefer a typewriter. Well, guess what, man? Like, that ship sailed. Like, you have to use a computer. Now,
Right.
Stephen King maybe, and he can type his books on a typewriter, but that's one in a million.
It's adaptation at this point. It's you need to follow trends. You need to adapt. I mean, that's through human evolution. Humans have needed to adapt to change with each invention and each advent that's come. There's always been people who, the invention of the automobile, the electricity. There was always people shooting it down, always throughout history. And now with these virtual reality and AI and that kind of thing, it's a weird area where we don't really know where it's going to go. It's like with the advent of electricity, it was direct current or opposite current. One, you either had that one or the other one, or you didn't believe it in your own. Now we're at a point where you have virtual reality and you have AI, and there's all these different implications for it. But at the end of the day, I think the world is always going to be the world. We're always going to need people at their feet. We're always going to need the guy stocking the shelf at the grocery store. We're always going to need the guy driving the truck. Those things aren't going to change. It's always going to be the same, but I think in any means, it's just all going to look a little different.
My concern is when, Terminator becomes real life and somebody just sits here and like, oh, I'm going to solve global warming. So let me ask AI, like, AI, solve global warming for me. Like, everybody was so happy with me that I just did this. And AI looks at it and be like, well, if I just turn off the electricity for all these people, I don't know anything about feelings. In a month, I'll probably freeze to death or die. And guess what? I solved global warming, and they're going to shut it down, and no one's going to know how to turn it back on. And we're just, we're going back to the Stone Age. And maybe it's not going to be that drastic, but someone's going to think they're doing something really good and not realize that the easiest answer to all problems, even if it's not the right answer, the easiest one is get rid of all the humans. Like, oh, hey, make world peace. Well, what's the easiest way to world peace? Get rid of all the people. Oh, world's at peace. There's the nuances in the question. Like, you ask the genie for, whatever the wish is, but you really have to frame it the right way, or, you're going to get screwed over.
It's like the idea of, the humanizing of AI, which we'll definitely have an episode on, in the very near future, where, AI doesn't know morals. It just knows, problem solution, like you're saying. So, the unfortunate truth is the way to fix most problems is to take the person out of the driver's seat. And in that case, it's, getting rid of humans. So it's this whole idea that if we don't humanize the AI that we're building and, that's, sitting there on a red destructor button, if anything ever goes AWOL, the world as we know it's done. It's done with all the innovation.
Right. I mean, there's no human control at this point. If you think of all these scary instances where Cuban Missile Crisis, during the Cold War, when Russia thought the missiles had been sent over, and there was a choice that had to be made, and someone had to push the big red button. It was human moral compass at that point. There was someone sitting in a chair saying, "Oh, man, like I don't know if I should do this. I don't know what are the facts, what is the opinions." AI isn't, doesn't have its opinions. It's fact based. It's just strictly fact and knowledge based. So if it's going to go with whatever you feed it. And if it thinks self-destruct, then there we go.
Yeah.
Self-destruct.
Well, that's a good thing too. It's only as good as the input that it's receiving. So it can only make the decisions on whatever it was fed. So you have to be concerned about, we talk about the hacking, we talk about what you can do. But like, what if you just fed it all the worst data possible and that's all it had?
Yeah. It's scary because, the creators of ChatGPT and that whole ballgame, they say, they sit down for interviews and they say themselves, they said, "Oh, we're really nervous about this because of its reach." The guy, one of the co-creators, he walks around with a briefcase with the big red button pretty much that can shut it down at any point. So it's really scary to think that even these guys, the guys who created it, they're scared of what this thing can do. Obviously AI is one of these things that we talked about in this episode, but it's constantly learning. It's looking to learn everything. And if it isn't a topic it knows, and if there's a really niche topic it might not know yet, it's going to learn it. And it's going to continue learning. And it's not when we say, okay, like, when are we going to put the glass box up? When are we going to put the glass box and say, okay, you can only learn up to this point? Right now it's AI can only learn so much because it can't learn current events. It hasn't gotten that smart yet. You can't feed it current events because there's too much going on at once. But, it's going to get to that point eventually where AI can take in current events and breaking news and simultaneously take news from every point around the globe. But it's at what point do we say, okay, here's the wall. This is where it stops. This is where it can't go any further. That's what I think everyone needs to come to a conclusion with and an agreement. So, we can have a handle on it. There's a human on the other side of the computer and says, okay, this is it. We're done. There's someone with more confidence at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's safe to hope for. I think that's, a little pie in the sky thinking. I hope not, but hoping that billionaires and, trillionaires in the future are going to be like, what is the greater good? And what is this really doing? Instead of like, oh, this gets me more zeros. We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let me rapid fire some things for you guys, and then we'll get some closing comments going.
That sounds good.
Awesome.
All right. So we talked about the aliens. Those bodies at the Mexican thing were definitely bullshit. Like, man, somebody made that in art class. You would think if they rolled out dead bodies that they would be in glass. They'd be like, people have gloves on. This guy, it was like, the little plastic thing that's on like a Christmas ornament or like the thank you cards you pull out. Like he was like jiggling it out to get it. And there was this mummified, 500,000-year-old body, whatever. Do you think Roswell in 1948 crash, do you think that happened and there's alien bodies being held by the government?
I'm going to say no. I really don't think. I feel like if that hadn't happened in any news, it would have already been declassified.
Also, with that, it's age of technology. We would definitely have seen some sort of picture of something by now with hackers and people that leak. So bullshit. Call them bullshit.
Bullshit. Okay, we got bullshit on that. Do you think time travel is possible or could be possible in the future?
From articles and research that I have read, I feel I'm going to say I wish it would possible to go back to the past. I don't think it's possible to go back to the past. I think it's definitely possible if you nail it down to like a speed kind of thing. We can definitely learn to time travel in the future.
I'm 100% with Ledger on that.
So you would get stuck in the future and you couldn't come back?
Right. Yeah. You can travel with the rotation of the Earth. You can travel faster in the future, but you can't go back.
Okay. I like that. I think that's good. So one thing, I don't know where I thought about this, but it was like, if aliens are from another planet, they're from, out of the solar system, and they're going to, you can bend space and time, and this whole like Einstein thing, it's easier to bend a piece of paper and meet there. But how do you know what's on the other side? Like, you would have to travel the entire universe and slowly map it. Like in Star Wars, when they do light speed, like Han Solo had to put in these calculations because you don't end up in an asteroid field. So like you would have to go there and see all this stuff. Them coming from far away in outer space, I think that would be you're too likely to land in the middle of a planet or something.
Yeah, totally with you.
Agreed.
Do you think Bigfoot is real?
Ooh, I think there's definitely a really large dude somewhere in the Appalachians that could be Bigfoot. I'm gonna say yeah.
I think Bigfoot at one point, maybe now, but I think at one point there was a Bigfoot, but I think it was some kind of mutated bear or something that no one can really put their finger on, but I think it might have been out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the kind of the yes camp for that. Okay, I'm in for that.
Yeah, it might be real. I'm believing it to believe it.
Either that or a retired moonshiner in West Virginia.
Just got all really big and jacked, nothing else to do but lift some weights, and he's out there just picking up rocks and throwing them. I think
Mr. Rock.
Mr. Rock, that's it. Do you think Kanye West and some of these other people are clones, that they've been cloned?
Ooh.
Man, I don't know. I'm gonna say no. I've seen it. I've seen the photos. It's like they have big red circles, and this is this and this is that. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where if this was real, someone would have already got it.
That's
someone
true.
Would have already said, "Oh my God, wait a minute," or they would have leaked something and would have already.
Yeah, you can't have two Kanyes, so I'm going to say no.
And no two Kanyes. My only problem with the leaking thing, I do agree. That like, hey, somebody would leak it, and there. Some crazy stories do come out, and then people, you just don't follow them. Like, who are you going to leak to? Like, you're going to give it to the New York Times. You're going to give it to CNN, Fox News, whatever it might be. You're going to give it to them. And they're going to go, well, this is crazy. We're not airing this. So then you have to leak it to crazy places that are going to air it. So next thing you know, you're calling into, Art Bell's show that he would do. You're calling into Alex Jones. You're like, Alex Jones, I got to tell you. And like, he might be like, yeah, clone and hybrids here or whatever it is. But then people are like, well, Alex Jones is a little bit nuts. That's a nuts conversation. Where are you leaking it to? That's my question.
Well, and I think at this point, with people being able to take advantage of things like organic growth, like TikTok, you can have your own profile and just post something and, get it uploaded and anybody can see it and it will be under your name. So something like if it was, I found, Kanye West clone, I found the proof, here it is, they could upload that and it would just be under their name. That's what I think it would be.
Yeah, and then definitely being in the age of media where everything is about coming down, the grapevine. You post something somewhere and then someone pulls it and posts it somewhere else, and it's this whole idea of organic growth, but also people just multiplying this and skewing it like a game of telephone. So if you're airing it out that, oh my God, I saw Bigfoot and there's two of them, right? CNN's not going to air that, but if I told it to, somebody that believes in that type of thing, right, then it's just going to eventually make its way to mainstream media. That's just the way I've seen it. It's like, trickle down effect, grapevine effect, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. And then the other thing for leaking or whatever it might be was Edward Snowden. He took some classified documents. He went first and he ended up in Russia. So some of that was, I think it was Vault 7 they talked about. And it was that the NSA is scooping up all your data, that the NSA spying on Americans supposed to be illegal. Take all your stuff. Everything's being put in a warehouse and in files. And also that they can hack into any computer and also undetected and also make it look like whoever they want did the hacking. So erase their hacking steps and, oh, hey, Russia is hacking into Ukraine, but really it's NSA hacking into Ukraine, making it look like Russia did. So like all this like crazy stuff that I think could also, if somebody were to upload things or they were to steal it, it's very easy to take some of these things back. And the things that do make it out, it's either they don't care about or they want it out.
Yeah. I mean, with the Edward Snowden, especially the NSA, post 9/11, there's huge implications with that, with the laws that were passed and the security measures with that. I'm at that point where, they have the ability to do those kind of things. They passed laws that gave them that ability to tap phones and that kind of thing. Do I think maybe, the hacking kind of thing and being able to scrub their name off of it? I'm not sure. I really don't know. people have gotten pretty intricate with IP addresses and that thing, and it's really hard to kind of scrub it off the surface. The digital footprint with that and being able to really track it down, it's getting more intricate to like, if you put this 20 years ago, you could probably do it and scrub your name off completely and it would be a blank slate. But now, I mean, it's so deep where the newer systems, you can't get away with it.
That's true. I mean, I'm on the other side of it too, where just with the way technology grows and the way people always find a way around firewalls and all these different like rules of technology and all these types of things, like based on innovation, it's totally possible. Like anybody's able to erase anything they've ever done. You look at, from a college perspective, when we go on Quizlet and Chegg and want to be able to find an answer, but it's blurred out because of the screen, we can inspect element. There's these things that you can do on computers. And, that's obviously a very low level of this whole erasing footprints and all those types of things. But if it's possible on one end, I think it's possible on another. I mean, that's just kind of a basic overlying topic, but that's just how I feel.
I like it. And what they might have had then and what you can do now could also be very different at that time. If they even had it all, there's information, there's disinformation, who knows about Edward Snowden anyway. But I think that's my rapid fire. Don't want to get too crazy for you guys. We're not going to get into if the earth is flat, if the Kardashians going to end up in the White House. We'll save all that for our next episode.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds good.
We'll definitely think of some answers.
100%.
Do our research.
Jump on it. Where can guys find you? Where can people find you?
They can find us. So on all platforms, we are FlipCast Podcast. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. All of our links are in our link tree in our bio. Yeah, feel free to follow us. We're doing a giveaway right now where for the first 250 people that follow us on TikTok, you'll be entered into a giant prize wheel to be able to win a $25 Amazon gift card. So for those watching, feel free to come to us.
Completely free, no strings attached. And even if you unfollowed afterward, we wouldn't be mad.
Exactly.
We're trying to get to that now.
Yes. So, feel free to enter. All it takes is a follow. And yeah, that's what I got.
Once you follow, you got to keep following them. You can't unfollow. You can't unfollow the follow.
We appreciate that, Brian. We appreciate that.
You got to stick with it. But I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'll put all your stuff in the show notes and everything.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Take care. All right, everyone. That was our show. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast. Like and follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date in all things wild and weird. Check out the links in the show notes for more information on our guest. The biggest support you can offer is to tell everyone about the podcast. Until next time.